Welcome to another episode of Grace Notes, in which we take a conversational deep dive into the latest sermon series and other topics that will help us to grow and be encouraged. Okay, so get ready, because we're going to discuss the Jesus is King sermon series through the lens of Bible trivia. And you shared some of their Bible trivia videos with me and some notes, and I have to say I was kind of surprised by how much these simple questions really make you think about hope and unity and humility.
Yeah. It's amazing how those kind of trivia questions can really act as a gateway to some pretty profound concepts.
Totally.
Sometimes a simple question can really kind of unlock a whole new level of understanding,
For sure.
Yeah.
So we've got these two YouTube videos, one covering Ephesians 1, the other Philippians 2.
Okay.
I thought we could kind of use those as a springboard to explore how these big themes all connect back to the idea of Jesus as King.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because those books of the Bible have so much to say about who Jesus is and what his kingship means for us.
Okay, so let's start with the theme of hope.
All right.
There was a question in the Ephesians 1 trivia that really jumped out at me.
It's true or false? Knowing God gives us hope. What do you think about that?
Well, it seems kind of obvious on the surface.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah, you're right. There is a lot packed into that seemingly simple statement.
Right.
It's not just about having kind of a vague sense of optimism or positive thinking.
Yeah.
Ephesians 1:18 talks about the hope we have because of the inheritance we received through Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the knowing God part comes in. It's about having a relationship with him through Christ.
Okay, so it's not just about knowing about God.
Right.
It's about knowing him personally.
Exactly.
And that's where our hope comes from.
Exactly. Our hope is rooted in the reality of who Jesus is and what he has done for us. It's an inheritance that can't be taken away no matter what life throws our way.
Wow.
Think about a time when you were going through something difficult.
Yeah.
Maybe a loss or a setback or just a period of uncertainty. What gave you hope during that time?
Honestly, for me, it was knowing that God was with me.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of the pain. And also knowing that he had a plan, even when I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Which actually reminds me of another question from the trivia.
Okay.
What else gives us hope according to Ephesians 1:9?
Yes. The answer is God's purpose. Knowing that God has a plan, a purpose for our lives, can be incredibly reassuring even when we don't understand it.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So we have hope because of our inheritance through Christ.
Right.
And we have hope because of God's purpose for our lives.
Exactly.
Feels like those two things are kind of intertwined.
Yeah.
Our inheritance is part of God's purpose for us.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
And this connects directly to the idea of Jesus as king.
Okay.
If Jesus is king, if he truly has authority over everything, then his purposes will prevail.
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful source of hope, especially when we look at the state of the world and all its problems.
Right, because it means that ultimately good will triumph over evil. But I'm curious, does this hope only apply to the future, or can we experience it now? The trivia touched on that with a question about whether Jesus' reign gives us hope only in the next life.
Yeah.
Referencing Ephesians 1:20.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question, and I think it's important to remember that Jesus' kingship isn't just some future event.
Yeah.
It's a present reality.
Okay.
Yes, we look forward to the fullness of his kingdom when he returns,
Right.
but we also experience his reign here and now.
So it's like we're living in the already but not yet tension of the kingdom.
Exactly.
Oh.
And that means we can experience the hope of his kingship in tangible ways today. We see glimpses of his kingdom breaking into the world through acts of love and justice and mercy.
Right.
We experience his power and grace in our own lives as he transforms us from the inside out.
Okay, so we're not just waiting around for heaven. We're invited to participate in the reality of his kingship now.
Exactly.
But how does that tie back to the theme of hope specifically?
Well, it means our hope isn't just some vague wish for a better future.
Yeah.
It's grounded in the present reality of Jesus' reign.
Okay.
We can face challenges with courage, knowing that the king is on our side.
Right.
We can persevere through difficult times, knowing that ultimately victory belongs to him.
That is so encouraging.
Yeah.
It's like knowing that even when things are tough, there's a bigger story unfolding and we're a part of it.
Yes.
And that story is ultimately a story of hope because Jesus is king.
Exactly. And remember, Ephesians 1:21, it says that Jesus' authority is far above all rule and authority, power and dominion.
Wow.
His kingship isn't just a title.
Right.
It's the foundation of our hope because it means he has the power to make all things new.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So knowing God through Jesus gives us hope. God's purpose gives us hope, and Jesus' authority as king gives us hope. Wow. But what kind of hope is this exactly?
Well, it's a hope that's grounded in something solid.
Okay.
Jesus' victory and his ongoing reign. It's not wishful thinking. It's confident expectation based on who he is and what he has promised. Yeah. You know, as we talk about hope, it strikes me how interconnected all these themes are.
Yeah.
Hope, unity, and humility.
Right?
They're like threads woven together in this tapestry of Jesus' kingship.
Oh, I like that. Okay, unpack that a little bit for me.
Okay.
What do you mean by interconnected?
Well, think about it this way. If we truly believe that Jesus is king, that he has ultimate authority, doesn't that change how we view ourselves and others?
I see what you're getting at. If we all belong to the same king, then maybe those things that divide us start to seem less important.
Exactly. Which leads us perfectly into the next theme from the trivia unity.
Okay.
The Ephesians 2 trivia really digs into how Jesus brings people together, breaking down walls.
Yeah, that one got me thinking too. And one question that really stood out was there a division between us before Jesus? It seems like such a simple question, almost too obvious.
Right.
But why is it so important to understand that pre-existing division?
Because it helps us grasp the magnitude of what Jesus accomplished.
Okay.
Ephesians 2.11122 talks about this new reality of unity in Christ, but to fully appreciate that we need to remember what things were like before.
Right, like we were separated from God and each other by sin, prejudice, and all sorts of barriers.
Exactly.
But Jesus came to tear down those walls.
Right.
There was even a fill-in-the-blank question about that.
Yeah, fill in the blank. Jesus came to blank down walls.
Right.
It's such a powerful image, and it connects directly back to his kingship.
Okay.
It's not just about getting along with people. It's about a fundamental change in our relationship with God and each other, thanks to Jesus' authority and power as king.
So it's not just about outward behavior. It's about a deeper inner transformation.
Yes, and it's not something we can achieve on our own.
Right.
Ephesians 2.3 reminds us that we were by nature deserving of wrath. We needed Jesus to step in and make a way for us to be reconciled to God.
That makes sense. Okay, but how does that change our relationships? What does Ephesians 2.19 say about believers?
It says we are fellow citizens with God's people and members of God's household.
Wow.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah.
Through Christ, we're brought into this incredible family, this diverse yet unified community. It's like all those differences that used to separate us, they don't just disappear.
Right.
But they're transcended by our shared identity in Christ.
Wow, so it's like being part of a kingdom where everyone has a place regardless of their background or beliefs.
Exactly. And it goes back to that trivia question about our new reality in Christ and how our blank transcends our differences because Jesus is king.
Right, the blank was unity.
Yes.
Our unity in Christ is the foundation of this new reality. It's the very essence of what it means to be part of his kingdom.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the final theme we're exploring, humility.
Okay.
The Philippians 2 trivia is all about that and how it relates to Christ's glory.
Yes, and it starts with a true-false question that I thought was really thought-provoking.
Okay.
Is humility essential for living beyond yourself? What are your thoughts on that?
I love that question. And the answer is a resounding yes.
Oh.
True humility allows us to move beyond our self-centered desires and focus on serving others. Philippians 2.112 lays out this beautifully with Christ as our ultimate example.
I remember that passage.
Yeah.
But honestly, I used to think humility was about putting yourself down or being a doormat.
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to see it differently.
I think a lot of people have that misconception.
Yeah.
But true humility isn't about denying our worth or value.
Okay.
It's about having a right understanding of our place in relation to God and others.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get it. So it's not about being meek and mild, but about recognizing that we're not the center of the universe.
Right.
And that there's something bigger than ourselves.
You got it. And who better to illustrate this than Jesus himself?
Right.
Philippians 2.5-8 tells us he didn't cling to his equality with God, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant.
Well, hold on. Can you unpack that a little more?
Sure.
What did Jesus do to model humility? It's almost hard to fathom.
Well, think about the incarnation, the fact that the Son of God became human.
Right.
That in itself is an incredible act of humility.
Yeah.
He willingly set aside his divine privileges and took on the limitations of human existence.
That's mind-blowing. And he didn't stop there, right?
No.
He humbled himself even further to the point of death on a cross.
Yes.
It's like he was saying, my kingship isn't about power and dominance, it's about love and service.
Exactly. It's a paradox. The King of Kings humbled himself to serve and save us.
Wow.
And this connects directly to the trivia question about considering others more blank than ourselves from Philippians 2.3.
Right. What was the missing word again?
Important. Philippians 2.3 says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves."
Okay.
It's a radical concept, isn't it?
It is.
To genuinely value others above ourselves.
It goes against everything our culture tells us.
Right.
But it's at the heart of what it means to follow Christ.
Absolutely. And it all goes back to the theme of Jesus' kingship.
Okay.
His humility is what makes his kingship so powerful and compelling. It's a kingship rooted not in domination or self-promotion, but in service and sacrifice.
And that's the model for us, isn't it? As we embrace humility, as we put the needs of others before our own, we participate in the very nature of Christ's kingship.
Exactly. It's about reflecting his character and values in our daily lives, and that's where the real challenge lies, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one thing to answer trivia questions correctly.
Right.
It's quite another to live out these truths in the messy reality of our daily lives.
So true. The lifelong journey for sure. But I think the Jesus is King sermon series gives us a powerful framework for that journey.
Yeah.
We've covered hope, unity, and humility and how they're all interconnected. But I keep thinking about that question about how Jesus' reign gives us hope, not just in the next life, but also in this one. What does that look like, practically speaking? How do we experience the reality of Jesus' kingship in our everyday lives?
Yeah, that is the question, isn't it? We've been talking about all these amazing things, but how do we actually see Jesus' kingship playing out, like, in our day-to-day lives?
It's a great question, and I think it's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Right.
You know, it's one thing to understand these concepts intellectually, but it's another to see them come to life in our everyday experiences.
Exactly. So where do we even begin?
Well, I think it starts with remembering that Jesus' kingship is all about transformation.
Okay.
It's not just about outward rules or rituals,
Right.
but about our hearts and minds being renewed by his grace. As we surrender to his authority, we start to see the world differently, act differently, love differently.
Okay, so it's an inside-out kind of thing.
Exactly.
But how does that actually happen? How do we move from head knowledge to heart transformation?
I think the trivia question about considering others more important than ourselves is a great place to start.
Remember that one from Philippians 2.3?
Yeah.
It's a call to put aside our self-centeredness and embrace a posture of humility and service.
Yeah, that one really struck me. But honestly, it can feel so overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I even begin to live that out consistently?
You're right. It's not easy.
Right.
But I think it's about taking small steps, making intentional choices to put others first in our daily interactions.
So give me an example. What does that look like in practice?
Well, it could be something as simple as really listening to someone who needs to vent, offering a helping hand to a neighbor, or choosing to forgive someone who's wronged you.
Okay.
These might seem like small acts, but they're actually profound expressions of Jesus' kingship at work in our lives.
Because they reflect his love and humility.
Exactly. They're glimpses of the kingdom breaking into our ordinary lives, transforming our relationships and communities one interaction at a time.
Right.
You know, think about a time when someone showed you unexpected kindness or compassion. How did it make you feel?
It's funny you should ask, because just yesterday, my car battery died in the grocery store parking lot.
Oh, no.
And I was totally stranded. And this guy I'd never met before stopped and helped me jumpstart my car.
Wow.
It was such a small thing, but it totally made my day.
That's a perfect example. You know, it wasn't a grand gesture,
Right.
but it was an act of service that embodied the heart of Jesus. And those seemingly small acts can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to do the same.
I love that. It makes me think about the theme of hope, too.
Yeah.
We talked about how our hope isn't just wishful thinking, but it's grounded in the certainty of Christ's victory.
Right.
So how does that play out in our daily lives?
It means we can face challenges with courage and resilience, knowing that our ultimate hope rests in something far greater than our present circumstances.
Okay.
It's like having an anchor that keeps us steady even in the midst of the storm.
So even when things are tough, our hope in Christ's kingship gives us the strength to keep going.
Absolutely. It's like That old hymn says, "My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness."
Wow.
And not only does it give us strength, but it also inspires us to work for justice and righteousness in the world.
Okay.
We know that ultimately good will triumph over evil because Jesus is king.
Right.
But we're also called to be agents of that transformation, to embody the values of the kingdom in our words and actions.
That's powerful. So we're not just passively waiting for the kingdom to come.
Right.
We're actively participating in its arrival.
Yes, we're invited to partner with God in bringing his kingdom to earth as it is in heaven.
Wow.
And that brings us back to the theme of unity.
Okay.
We talked about how Jesus breaks down walls of division, creating a new reality of belonging.
Right.
But how do we live that out in a world that often feels so fractured and divided?
Yeah, you can feel impossible sometimes.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, there's conflict and division. It's disheartening.
You're right. It's easy to get discouraged, but I think it starts with remembering that our primary allegiance is to Jesus, not to any political party, ideology, or social group.
So it's about putting our identity in Christ above everything else.
Exactly. And when we do that, it changes how we view others.
Mm-hmm.
We start to see them not as enemies or rivals, but as fellow citizens of the kingdom, beloved children of God.
That's such a different way of looking at things. But how do we make that shift in a practical sense? Especially when we encounter people who think and act so differently than we do.
It means building bridges instead of walls.
Okay.
It means listening to understand rather than to judge.
Right.
It means seeking common ground even when we disagree. And it means extending grace and forgiveness even when it's hard.
Wow, that's challenging. But it's also incredibly inspiring. It's like you're saying, we can choose to be kingdom builders even in the midst of a broken world.
You got it. And it all flows from the reality of Jesus' kingship.
Right.
His love compels us, his grace empowers us, and his hope sustains us.
This has been such an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
We've gone from simple trivia questions to a profound exploration of what it means to live under the reign of Christ.
I agree.
So, and on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into Jesus is King.
Okay, sounds good.
But I hope this is just the start of your own exploration.
Yeah.
Keep pondering these themes, keep seeking ways to embody hope, unity, and humility in your everyday life, and watch as Christ's kingship unfolds in amazing ways.
Until next time, may you experience the fullness of his grace and peace